A historic Virginia church, as we told you yesterday, where George Washington frequently worshipped, will remove a memorial plaque honoring America's first president.
Where he spent 20 years of his life. The church will also take down a memorial honoring Robert E. Lee. But where does this political correctness stop? Joining us now is the author of I Am George Washington, Brad Meltzer, and former NYPD lieutenant and Army veteran, Dr. Darren Porcher. Thank you both for being with us. Brad,
thanks for having me.
So that's the answer. We just erase all of our history.
Listen, I saw this headline and I was horrified, as every historian should be, as every American should be. What, are we going to erase the father of our country? But thankfully, when I read the church's statement on the matter, it was actually reasoned, and it wasn't about the George Washington part of it. It was about keeping the church itself, because there were two plaques, making sure they were both on there. But it does give us the opportunity to say, how far are we pushing this? And I face this personally. You know, I write every line of children's books for heroes, better heroes for my own kids, because I didn't want them looking at reality TV show stars. And when I did George Washington, someone said to me, he's a slave owner. And I said, listen, if you want someone perfect, only God's perfect. That's it. Right. Anyone else, you know, you're going to find some flaw.
You can take down every statue in this country, then.
And that's the thing, right? If you do that, there's no statues left. And we can't do that. Of course, it's absurd. The one thing that we have to do is not let this, obviously, you know, become the slippery slope where we look around, there's nothing left. There's nothing for us to look at. Our history's gone at that point. And George Washington, come on. There's, as an example that I want to hold to my kids, there's no one better, you know, few people better that I can hold up than the person who had the humility to lead us like that, the person who had the strength to lead us during the Revolutionary War. I mean, this is one of those ones, you don't touch the statues ever there. You don't touch the plaques of him ever.
Great points, Brad. And you mentioned the church in their statement. I want to give the full context. They said the plaques in our sanctuary make some in our presence feel unsafe or unwelcome. Some visitors and guests who worship with us choose not to return. Many in our congregation feel a strong need for the church to stand clearly on the side of all are welcome, no exceptions. Dr. Darren Porcher, you're a former NYPD lieutenant and an Army veteran. You heard what Brad said. Where do you stand on this?
Well, I think it's unfortunate, but this is a harbinger for the direction that the country is going in. George Washington was a nation builder. When we look back at the resounding effects that he had on American history, it stands true that he was one of the great Americans in our society. Therefore, to remove his name is of a great detriment to us as a country. George Washington, if we start there, then we tear down the name for the Washington Monument. The same holds true for the George Washington Bridge. This was one of the great Americans in our society, and therefore I think that it's necessary to keep George Washington's his name as a benchmark of our history.
Brad, there's also something to learning from our past. You know, mistakes are constantly made. We're going to be learning from this time in history. We're going to only evolve from here. So, as you said, are we going to be? Do people want us to live in a world where we don't have any history to look back on, where we don't learn from our past, we don't become better because of it?
Right, and you said that's actually really well said. When you look at it, history isn't a bunch of dates and facts that you memorize. History is a selection process, and it chooses every single one of us every single day. And the question is, do you hear the call? And the call comes from all those amazing stories that come before us. They show us what we're capable of. They show us that we're all scared, that we're all amazing, that we're all terrified, that we're all incredible. Some of us all in the very same day, some of us all in a few minutes. But that's the best part of us, is that we're all flawed in some way. We all are human. And in history is where we find our real power. We know if you don't learn it, you repeat it. But to me, listen, George Washington, it's still George Washington.
Darren, what's also fascinating is President Trump took so much heat a few months ago when he made this very point. He said, what's next? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, you want to start taking them down? And some people scoffed and said, oh, come on, that's not going to happen. And here we are, Darren. So we got 30 seconds. What's your message as this continues to play out? What do you want people to know about how we should approach all of this going forward?
George Washington is the benchmark of our American society, and we need to respect it as so. He was an imperfect man in an imperfect society. However, he did some resounding things for us as a nation moving forward. We should always cherish the remembrance of George Washington moving forward, and that's what makes us a great and the most fantastic nation on the face of this earth.
Yeah, that's well said, Brad Meltzer. Dr. Porcher, great to have both of you on the show this morning. It's an important debate. It will only continue, but some great things said there. Good to see you both.
Good seeing you both.